As a sensitive person, our guest today on the journey has struggled emotionally throughout their life. But being determined, they have tried many things and read many books to help themselves, but nothing worked. So they eventually ended up in the same place. They were still riddled with conflict and could not sustain peace and joy, and it ended up with a sense of dread that was always just around the corner, which is very understandable from my perspective. But then at some point, our guest realized that their struggle was not because they did not know enough, but because of unresolved emotions, and they did not know how to handle them. And I say no more because it's Rytis's journey and not mine. But I will relate, and I always do relate, as many people know. I will relate if there's anything that I like to hear. So welcome, Rytis.
Hello,
Hello.
and hello
Now,
everyone who's listening in.
everyone listening, watching, and that's the way it is. So, Ritis, I always like to know, and obviously I like to not know intentionally, but when you was younger, what was the main feeling that was? Because it said throughout your life you struggled emotionally throughout your life, and then
hmm
you've talked about unresolved emotions. Do you think there was issue? I'm not saying issues because that's the wrong word, but do you feel like there was something inner, the inner you that was happening in your life as you was growing up?
Yeah, of course. Um, like the main things for me were that most of the time I felt afraid and fearful and stuck in a sense of internally of just wanting to do something, and then like there's this almost physical sensation of freezing, of just not making a step, of just like spinning in my thoughts and thinking about what I want to do, how it should be done, and then not taking an actual action. So it was
Yeah,
like very obvious of just like thinking about stuff and then not doing it. But what was probably like the most painful for me to in till I don't know, till I would say about 2021, was that uh, I carried a lot of pain. I carried a lot of resentment
mm,
and just unresolved anger. And because I was afraid of conflict. So I would try to avoid and people please and be nice to everyone. And so one side of me was always like very social, very open and loving and kind and going to people. But on the other hand, uh, the if something hurt me, I would carry it with me
yeah,
for a long time, and so that burden was not pleasant
no,
to have. Yeah,
and
until I figured out what to do about it.
it is a relatable thing because, like I said, I do relate to certain topics when I do interview people. And when I read your story, because it is read as your my story when on your website, which we'll talk about in a bit, but it says as a sensitive person, you struggled emotionally, and then you was
hmm
determined, and that is how I am. I'm 41. I still struggle daily,
mm
and I admit I struggle, but being determined, I'm kind of getting there. Yes, there are days I do am very determined. I am strong. But then there are
mm
days, like you said, about people pleasing, doing things to make, certain tasks more. It's not making it difficult, but it's making it more difficult for me to say, I need help. And I don't always hold up my hands and say, I need help. But when I'm in a determined day, I am like, I'm asking for help. But it's about
Yeah.
that flip side. And then flip side is about people pleasing. Like, I'm not trying to compare myself in the way I am, but day job, I struggle. Yes, I do it because it's a job, it pays the bills, but at the same time, I'm not quick one to say I need help. I'm just there quietly trying to do my best and feel very rejected when it feels like I'm not doing the standard that they set me.
Mm.
So I
Yeah,
go,
that's understandable.
so I'm not resentful, but it feels like I'm getting resentful to the fact that I'm trying my best and it's not recognized.
Yeah. Yeah, that like for me uh like my my stepfather was like quite impulsive at a time, and he was fast to go into anger or just saying that something is wrong and raising his voice. And
Mm,
so any change in the level of sound, in the intonation, was this trigger for danger inside of me, and like I would react to it. I would get tense. I would always listen, be very attentive. And on one hand, it's like later on in life that obviously turned out what made me more attuned and more sensitive to people, because it was like a survival tactic for me. But back then it was just, with that also came the belief that nothing I do is going to be enough, and things like that I had to overcome once I started to realize, wait, I believe that no matter what I do, it's not going to be good
mm,
enough. That's probably not true, and or I am not enough, and that's probably also not true. And so all these things that were carried from my childhood, the fears, this worthlessness, or just not having confidence in basically the result. And because the other part of my persona was very outgoing, like most people would not realize that that's how I feel, because
yeah,
whenever I came to an action and I would do something, like I would go more like, what the hell? Like, what's gonna happen, and I would do it. So if you see me in that moment, it seems like I'm very confident and I'm going forward. But before that, like inside of me, there was a lot of stuff going on until I learned to like actually resolve my emotions,
yeah,
because through the years that was the key. It was, in the beginning it was like, I need information, I need to know stuff, I need to understand why, how, and when, and what. And then I was like, okay, I know enough, but things don't change. Why? And it turned out that there was just too much pain that I
mm.
need to transform and integrate and resolve. So
Now, do
yeah.
you believe, it was ingrained into you as a younger child or even as a young adult that that's all you're used to and you get used to that and that's all you live by because you've learned it over the years? Like, narcissist, for example, there's some people who have been in narcissistic relationships and they get so used to being, oh, I'm all worthless because I've been told this, I'm this because I've been told that, I'm, feeling this way because I've been told, is that the kind of feeling it was for you, that you heard it constantly, so it was the normal for you to hear something negative?
Like the way my environment was, let's say my parents or grandparents, uh, it wasn't about them telling me something negative about me. It was more of my reaction and my internal belief structure that if they are disappointed or angry or unhappy with me, so I made that there's something wrong with me. In childhood, when I was very little, there was this, like, it's not, how they say that. Mm, let's say you did something wrong as a little kid, and then my grandmother was more like into trying to scare me, in like, if you won't be a good boy, then something will happen. So later on in life I realized that, oh, under that there was this assumption that I am bad,
Yeah.
But it wasn't, like them trying to tell me that, oh, you're like wrong, you can't do stuff or something. It was more from these indirect things that I made these conclusions inside of me, and then of course, I would react to every little thing with that attitude
Yeah.
internally.
And it's the way I was, like I said, I don't condone my mother at all. I don't know much about my father, so it's always been my mother. But, when she was
Mm,
raising me, she was always strict, and it seemed like she was being firm. Now, that has the long-lasting effect long term on me because I feel like I'm always having, say, for example, if I do something wrong now, I always have to feel of I got to either way, I got to shut myself off because that was my punishment when
mm,
when I was younger. But at the same time, like I said, I'm 41. I don't have to hide in a bedroom. I don't have to close the door. I don't have to sit away from people in school, for example. That sort of thing. I ain't part of
mm,
society.
mm.
But that inner belief of me feels like I should hide away just because of me being used to it.
Yeah, it's like, you know, mm, we go for similarity and for what we already know, right?
Yeah.
We
If
kind of find pretense of safety in it, and internally, externally, and stuff like that. So um, for me, like it was more like going out and having connection with people, but being very sensitive to any like negative reaction to any sadness, disappointment, and stuff, or
Mm.
feeling sorry for people or things like that. And that, uh, like, on the other hand, that made me care a lot. And I was always extremely interested in like how I function and how others function. Like when I was a child, I remember like one of my kind of wishes or dreams was to know what other people feel and think. Like when I read sci-fi books about telepathy or empathy, I was like, give me that. And the funny thing uh, for me is that once when I was about 30 years old, and I stumbled upon while searching for different things and workshops and stuff, I stumbled into a meditation retreat. And in there were also the guy that was doing the retreat. He was also teaching on how to let go emotions and how to work with your feelings, and that was the part which I was actually looking for, and it just clicked, and I was like, oh my god, it's so simple, it's clear now. I'm not just like I know answers, but I can actually connect to the feelings, uh, and I have the tools to let them go, to release and to integrate and to have peace where there was pain before. And the side effect of that for me was that I can, like, the more I became open to my own feelings, the more I could actually sense and discern other people's feelings. So I can feel what others feel when I work with them. I can like feel when people relax or get tense because there's this empathy, this connection through the body, and my body just reacts. And when I talk to my clients or I do like workshops or whatever, it just, I can sense them and I know what's going on with them, sometimes even before they know. And then I'm kind of waiting for them to realize that, let's say, something is already resolved, but their mind is still spinning and they're still thinking and trying to figure it out. And I'm like, but check with your body. Is there any pain? And they're like, no. So I'm like, is there a problem anymore? And they're like, whoa, but, like, it's too fast or too simple or something. So this, like, which what looked like an issue in childhood of being overly sensitive now became like a superpower of being able to sense other people actually feel how they feel and know how they feel. So it's interesting how this whole thing like transformed. uh, completely to the opposite of what I believed about it. Like I thought in childhood when I was like 12, I remember I like loudly said in the moment of anger to my father, I was like, "It's because of you. I'm so sensitive." Like it's the worst thing in
So
life.
you was quick to
And now
point the
it's
fingers.
like,
But
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah. Of course, it was.
but it's just, that inner self to be strong because not everyone has got the strength or empathy, to understand certain things. Like I know for a fact I had behavioural issues when I was growing up. I was as they word it in the UK, and I think they do say it in other places, I was a problem child. It said on my report cards,
Mm.
I lack empathy. As I got older, I started getting empathy because I believe people deserve a chance. And when you get people coming to you and leaning on you, you have to be something, even if it's I'm doing something wrong. You want people still to come to you and have respect for you. And I just
Sure.
believe, being empathetic, you have got the respect because people will know that you can tell them and reassure them in a comforting voice without judgment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And mhm.
and it's just the fact of, you felt being, I'm not saying you, but I'm saying from my perspective, I was often judged because of certain parts. Now I get respect, I get, people leaning, like my partner, for example, she leans on me. I'm her support. She's my support. I feel accomplished,
Mm.
and I don't have to go around people pleasing. Even though like I said, I'm not trying to judge in the way I am about my job, but it feels like I have to people please there. But what can you do? It's a job. If you're not your own boss, you're people pleasing the boss because you have to make it good for your boss.
Yeah, it's like how to say that when you work for someone, you kind of have a contract of what is expected of you to do. So in that sense, yes.
Yeah, and then obviously if you don't follow the contract, yes, you get told, and then you feel like, and it says about the unresolved emotion, because you're worried about showing the emotion, because if you show the emotion, your boss will see you as weak. Like, there's conflict at the work, for example. What do? You take it up with the boss. If you feel like you can't take it up with the boss, you take it above them and take it to their boss. There's a chain of how you take it, but it's about how you approach it and approach it in such a way that makes you feel proud to say, I stood up for myself.
Yeah.
So,
One thing that mhm.
so, I was, like I said, reading your bio, you did not have the tools to meet the unresolved emotions and you were suppressing and rejecting them, which caused further issues down the line. So that's what I'm saying. Why it may be easy to say, why did you not understand it? Why did you not do that? But for some people, it's not always easy.
And it's always like other people have completely different life experience and perspective. Like the
Mm,
one thing that I keep repeating to my wife sometimes and or to the clients is like there's no obvious things. Like what seems obvious to you is not obvious to anyone else because whatever seems obvious or very simple to us is just because we had an experience which made it like that. We either repeated something many, many times, or we had a certain belief or perspective on life for a long time. And it seems like, duh, how do you not know that? But because everyone else has a different experience in life, they just don't. And if we can see that, then there's empathy and compassion because then I know that if they are struggling with something, there is a reason inside of them. They have their own reasons. So if I'm curious, I ask. And as I've said, I was always curious about it, and that made me go and work with people and help and coach and stuff because I was like I always wanted to know what is happening inside of others. But then once I found solutions for my own pain, I realized, wait, this is useful. This is useful to others. It's not just for me. And so that came out as coaching, as help, as guidance to others for like 12 plus years already that I've
Yeah.
been doing that.
But it's the curiosity in you that made you curious, and I like that because everyone, and I'm not saying it weirdly, but everyone's got curious side.
Yeah. It's just like how to say that, some people are more afraid than curious.
Yeah.
And I was always more curious than I was afraid, even though it seemed like I'm afraid of lots of things, like in different phases of my life. But the curiosity was always one of the guiding forces for me, where I would like forget myself if I
Mm.
get really into something and I want to know it and I want to study it
But
and
was
and
it being afraid of the unknown? Because when you are afraid, it's always the unknown, uncertainty.
it it's certainly like it's a funny thing. At some point in my life, I would probably have said that I am afraid of the unknown, but at some point, I looked at it. I don't know when that was, 8, 10 years ago or so. I just sat there and I was writing down my diary and I was just like self-reflecting, and I wrote something, oh, I'm afraid because I don't know what's gonna happen. And then it clicked. I was like, wait, if I really would not know what's gonna happen, I would not know to be afraid. So what am I actually afraid of? And then I was like, oh, so I'm afraid it's gonna go wrong somehow. So, and then I was like, wait, so it's not the unknown. I believe that it's gonna be bad. And then I'm afraid. And then I wondered, I was like, wait, but what if I take one step further and I actually look beyond what I believe is going to happen?
Mm.
What is beyond what I imagine? And that space just opened, and I was just looking into the emptiness, and I was like, oh, so in order to actually not know, I have to go beyond what I imagine and beyond what I remember. And in there's no fear. It's just lightness. It's just ease. It's peace. And so that phrase for me just collapsed in that moment. I was like, if I'm saying that I'm afraid of unknown, I'm just lying because I'm actually thinking this is going to go wrong this way and that way and that way. And I'm afraid of that. So since that day, like the unknown is more into like, oh, let's see where it goes. It just flipped into curiosity because I could not make myself believe anymore that I'm afraid of it.
Yeah. So it, it says, and like I said, I don't usually refer to notes, but I just read them so I can relate to how you've written it in your bio. It says someone was there for you to show you that things were possible to open up to feelings. You was guided, and that space was created where you could face those uncomfortable emotions because you always avoided, but you did it with courage and compassion.
Yes,
It's just that definition there that shows you can face things.
exactly. And
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 it's just
even now
amazing.
when you say it, it just like it touches me because there's so much gratitude that at some point in my life, in moments where I needed that, there was someone who could guide me and who could hold the space with compassion and love so that I can face whatever I was afraid of, whatever I was hurting with, whatever I was not able to see myself. And that like gift that I received from them by just being there, or like leading seminars or workshops, or however they participated in my life, allowed me to now be present for other people, now be present for my own clients, and to hold that space for them. And it's like this, yeah, how it's like paying it forward with gratitude and stuff. So it's like, I've got those gifts through searching, through curiosity, by finding people, by meeting them, by knowing how to work with feelings, how to actually like embrace and allow and to accept the parts of me that were rejected. And now I can uh, give it like not back, but give that also to other people so that it can spread and expand, and so that more people realize that it is possible to, even if you're extremely sensitive or you've been like hurt, and some of us believe that some things cannot be forgiven, let's say, because it hurts so much.
Mm.
And then to have an experience and to see someone who believes that they will never be able to go through that pain, to actually relax and no longer be in pain, is is like one of the biggest gifts in life, to just be able to be there and to see how that happens, how their face starts to shine, how their heart opens, and they and like one of the clients not so long ago, she was having issues with her husband. She was so angry and so resentful, and after an hour or so, I can feel that her chest is getting warm. She starts to feel love because there's no more pain that was there. And she's sitting there and she feels that love. And she's like, if she could, she would have like closed her mouth because she's feeling love towards him, but her mind goes like, no, 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 no. I'm not gonna say that I feel love towards him. And I'm like, what do you feel? And she's like, I'm like, uh-huh. Is your
Mm.
chest warm? She's like, mm-hmm. So what do you feel for him? She's like, it can't be love. I'm like, does it feel like love? So just it's so funny and so at the same time so precious
Yeah.
and so beautiful to see that shift happening in someone and to be able to help them.
And so, I haven't said your website, but can you tell us your website because people be wanting to know about you more? Can they get in touch with you there as well?
Yes, of course. It's Rytis Luka, and I'll try to spell it. It would be RYTISLUKO.com.
Okay, and I'll make
Yeah.
sure the website is listed in the description so it's easier for people or pausing it and writing it down. It will be in the description.
Yeah.
But obviously,
Great.
people will be able to get in contact with you there, I assume.
Yeah, yeah, there's a contact form. Like you can just write me there. There's my email, and just a form for discovery calls if someone wants to talk to me and just get to know. Like if we click, like it's all there. That's
Okay,
why the website is there. And
okay,
there are also some free stuff to just watch and see how I am and what I speak and how it looks.
okay. And the last question I like to ask, people are always on a journey of self-discovery, whatever, I always say
Mhm.
self-discovery because it is that. Like when I started my journey, I was young. Look where I am now. I'm in America. That's how far my journey's come. But obviously those journeys are interrupted by toilet breaks, or you have to go off for petrol, gas, whatever you want to call it, or even a diversion. But you're still inspired to get on with your journey, no matter what the interruptions are. What
Yes.
would you say to people to help them on their journey?
There was a very nice metaphor about a journey. It's like going up the mountain, and you see that at the top there's something really, really shining. You know that it draws you, and you're going up the mountain, and you sometimes just get tired and you sit and have a rest. And sometimes it becomes hard because the higher you go, it's cold, it's barren, and like you feel like you're alone, and the journey does not feel easy. And then you go like, well, I want to rest, and you go down the mountain into the city, and you have a rest. But you always know that you will come back on the mountain, and that internal journey that we're just having, all of us, one way or the other. It's like whenever you think that it's too hard, just like really stop and let yourself pause, because so many people just forcing themselves so hard.
Mm.
They're just like, I have to. But in that moment, just stop, just get your attention back to your body, just breathe and just check, are you safe, actually safe? Just look around, and if you are, let yourself rest. And in that rest, you can have that, it can be your foundation, because you know, if I'm sitting in the room and like no one is attacking me, there's no immediate danger, then I am safe, and I can rely on that, and I
Mm.
can really allow things to happen in my life because I am safe, no matter what the mind does, no matter how intense the feelings are. But there's this internal safety that is always, always available to us. And we can just really tune into it by stopping, by looking around and making sure that I am here, I am safe, I am okay.
And on that, I like to say thank you for sharing your journey with us today. And I hope people will go on your website and will just follow your journey further.
Thank you for having me here.
Thank you, Rytis. Our thanks to our guest there for a wonderful journey. And now a couple of messages to share with you.
Hello, I am Amy Harrison. I'm the author of the book Feline Warrior Part 1 and Part 2, a fictional story that is written in a poetic format that is based on real-life events that could happen to anyone and intended only for relatable purposes. This story claws into Catgirl's past abuse. Catgirl is human and part feline, but truly a warrior who can handle anything because she is strong and fierce. She has been taken advantage of for far too long. Join her on her journey as she reaches freedom. Here are some poems from Feline Warrior. Tears flow. I no longer know what to do. I am no longer who I once was, and it is because I made a choice to use my voice, and that is okay, because what I had to say was true, unlike me and you. Now I see. I am free. I am me. I am Catgirl. Ultimately, be you. Always stay true. Do what you want to do, because every day is made new. If you want to read more, visit the link in the description. Meow at you later.
Music by Erica R. from Pixar Bay.
By Tim Parsons. The narrator is Kate Barton. Director and producer, Darren Street. Tim Parsons would like to thank family and friends for their support with the paramedic Chris venture. The series is dedicated to the memory of his father, Reverend David Parsons. Copyright Tim Parsons 2020, all rights reserved. Unauthorized use, copying or sharing of this audiobook is strictly prohibited. This has been a Voice Reel studio production for Tim Parsons.
Oh, good afternoon, everyone. I've just been listening to the Paramedic Chris children's books on audio again, and I just love it because they've given a tribute in one of them to my dad as well, who passed away a few years ago. I love audio books, and it's great to walk around, and it's great to sit at the computer, if you're out jogging or wherever, to listen to them as well. All 4 of the Paramedic Chris children's books are available on audio book from Amazon. Go and take a listen to them. You won't be disappointed. You'll hear what happens when a community pulls together and supports one another. The best thing is to pop over to my website, paramedicchriskidsbooks.org, and you'll see the links on the shop page. Keep safe, everyone, and thank you for being you.
The Journey podcast explores stories of personal growth, challenges, and life-changing moments. Each episode dives into unique experiences, offering insights and inspiration for listeners navigating their own paths. I believe everyone has a story worth sharing. If you'd like to share your journey with David and others, email your story to wisewords1983@reborn.com, and it may be featured in a future episode.